Lest you believe that I only hang out in Mayfair at champagne receptions, let me assure you that is not true. I have trekked to deepest, darkest North London and an industrial estate today to take a peek behind the curtain of a place that I think some of the most exciting art is getting made right now. I can't wait to go inside. All right. A business that hasn't been around all that long, giant building. How has this happened?
Yeah, I mean, I don't really know. I guess I always say to people, like, we were just really good at it. Like, that is the kind of bottom line.
I'm really good at printmaking.
Printmaking, yeah, we're like really great printmaking. Like I always say, like, we're kind of like the carpenters of the art world. Do you know what I mean? Like if we were making cabinets, we were plumbing, we were building, something, we would do the same job, right? So it just came from, it started in my garage about 8 or 9 years ago.
So wait, to give everyone who's watching this perspective, this is the size of how many of your garages?
I've never been asked that question, actually. I don't really know a lot. The garage was tiny, but now this is about 25,000 square feet, which is significant. I think it's actually the biggest print studio dedicated to fine art for silkscreen in the world, as far as we're aware.
In the world?
I would say so, because it's so dedicated. It's so specifically dedicated. All of the space, it's not. We don't have etching over here and and metalwork, and it's screen printing. It's kind of the intersection between industry and art, I guess.
And what's going on here today?
Going on here, well, we've got a print for a Japanese artist called Lai. We've also got a print for a guy called Lee Olfan, who is a phenomenal artist, obviously very, very well known. Many works hanging in the Tate.
And is this one of the editions that was timed?
This is going to be timed, yes, exactly. Okay. This is not released yet. So this is a real sneak peek. So yeah, this is Ewan, and he's actually running this now, running the proof of it. So these are all this is the, a digital mock-up of the original, and he's now working into this, trying colors, testing colors, but he's making an original print. Yeah, he's not just making a facsimile.
Explain that.
Original print, okay, if you and I want to start a business and we were like, right, we're going to do posters for theatre, right? What's our objective? Well, all the colours need to be right, and we need to make the text needs to be legible, and we have these very objective ways of working, right? So that's our objective, and that's how we commercially are successful. But with art, it's a bit different to that. Like, yes, if you make a facsimile, it might be very impressive, but where's the love? Where's the grit? Ewan is printing this, and he's really thinking about, the kind of finish. It's really glossy where it needs to be glossy, it's matte where it needs to be matte. Actually, we won't be able to pick this up so close on camera, but there's all the tiny details of the canvas. But then what he wants when he's putting this on is to mimic that oil paint, Yeah. So this will be an event onto itself. It won't just be a copy of this. It will be something original, almost like a live performance of the studio album, if that makes sense, And then people can kind of come and buy this, and that's it, it's gone. We're not going to make it again, and maybe never quite make it in the same way.
And not to be too hyperbolic or geeky about this, the thing that sets apart what Make-Ready does is that inky. Some of the prints.
It's the sticky, the glossy. Yeah.
Look, it's hard. It's hardcore even for me, supposed to be an expert, to be like, okay, that's definitely a print and not a painting. How the hell are you pulling that off?
Yeah, so particularly with the George Condo prints, that is something where. We've blown a lot of people's minds with that. Like, a lot of people can make these photographic screen prints. The screen print can be very, can do a lot of things. That's what's great about it. If something's really simple and it's the Ramones printing their banner, that's a screen print, and that's amazing. But when we make these screen prints that are like paintings, like you say, and you really genuinely are super thick, and it's like the paint is there, and you can almost pick off the little bit. That is just industrial graphics printing, and we're standing on the shoulders of 100 years of nerds, really, who have run big Heidelberg presses, and we're not afraid to kind of celebrate what they do. Screen printing is an imaging process before it's a printing process, through and through. It's a way to expose an image onto a screen and apply a surface going to a substrate. Any other romance that you apply to it should be after the fact. And if you can kind of be humble about it in that sense and say, okay, we've got this great tool, then you can start making incredible work. Whereas if you become too enamored with, we're making a print for X I think sometimes you can forget, there can be this kind of premise of, oh, you can get too technical too quickly, but the devil is in the detail.
Yeah. Well, speaking of which, he's doing something detaily. Like there's a pot of paint going down it. Like people, I think, forget that a print like
very
this,
manual.
and that there's paint, like actual paint. This isn't like it's coming out of a bunch of.
It's a real surface coating of ink being poured through essentially poured and pushed through the mesh. And the way that it works is that the coated mesh touches the paper, and you don't push the ink through the mesh. The mesh peels away from the ink because adhesion takes place. It's quite a fundamental principle of it, and it's incredibly manual. Like, Ewan is now cleaning the squeegee. He's changing something about it. He's probably not happy with part of the process, but you see that it is literal ink. It's like a painting. It genuinely is. Just we're applying many, many thin coats, and the matrix of dots that we apply, the image basically, and the way that we apply it in a complex way creates this intense level of texture and tone that you can't really achieve in many other processes. But what's great about this process is that you can print lots of them, and they can be very linear, but you can also have all the nuance of the human as well. So like I said, it's a great intersection.
Yeah, and I mean, we saw you in earlier with a loop checking every single print as it was coming out. Like, as you say, this is not mechanical reproduction alone, like
No.
the human.
There are themes of that because that's how you build a business, right? You can't have, you can delve into the realm and say every print is completely different, but obviously you try and sell that to 400 people, then you might have a problem. But it depends on the kind of print that you're making. There's a romance to it, certainly, because yes, it is just incredibly skilled. There's just something incredibly skilled about it. For me, every time we get the ink out, even though I've done this for so long now, it's just so satisfying. There's something about it which is just very, very, childlike. The unadulterated joy of ink being scraped into a tin. I think that's why we do it.
I mean, I'm a little bit giddy. It's ridiculous, but it is so cool to see.
So he's stopping now. He might change something. He might change a color. He's probably, actually, I think he's probably finished that run because he's got another run to do. So every part of it is incredibly manual. To use a machine like this, it requires a high level of expertise.
And just to ask the obvious question, this green thing that's down,
yeah,
that's the plate.
That's the screen. So yes, technically, if you're doing some sort of leaf process, that would be the plate. The screen is the mesh, right? So the mesh is a polyester mesh stretched over an aluminium frame. Now, we could talk about mesh. We could do a 4-hour video on mesh, I promise you. But we're not going to bore your viewers with that. It is the device that delivers the ink to the substrate. The squeegee is almost inconsequential. It just puts the mesh in contact with the paper, right?
Okay.
In a line of tangency behind the squeegee, the mesh peels away, and that's the moment of printing. And the mesh can be thick or thin, like in terms of it can have many, many apertures per given centimeter, or it can have inches in the US. It's a very confusing thing when I speak to my US counterparts. And then you can have
lingo.
Yeah,
Centimeters, inches, doesn't it?
yeah, exactly. And you can have very wide apertures per given centimeters. Like textile printers, fabric printers are going to be printing with this type of mesh. So t-shirts. Often people say, when I say to them, "Hey, I'm a screen printer," they go, "Oh, t-shirts, right?" And I say, "Not a coffee." But then what happens is that green part of it that you mentioned is a photo liquid emulsion that's coated onto the screen. And then what happens is we stop areas of that being hit by sensitive UV light with a positive film. So we print onto some sort of acetate or polyester film. Mm-hmm. And then we expose the image onto it. And the image then is in almost a superposition in above and below the mesh at the same time. You can coat screens in very different ways. You can have different combinations of types of stencil making, different combinations of coating regimes that can produce different types of images. And controlling that and the matrix of the image is the fundamental reason why our prints look like paintings. And then everything else follows after that. Screen making is everything. And any printmaker will tell you that.
Screen making is everything. There'll be a quiz later.
The way we think about separating artworks is very much like painting. Screen printing is the best way to apply a surface coating to a substrate. So you can print intense, opaque colors over the top of other colors. Now, you can do that in other processes, of course, but you can do it so repeatedly with this. It's incredible. And you can also print so many different types of ink with different properties. Like Mickalene Thomas, we're printing glitter, literally massive particulates of glitter through a mesh that has 10 apertures per actual glitter, yeah, which has 10 apertures per given centimeter. So you can print these, you can do anything. screen printing can do anything. The motherboard in your iPhone is screen printed. It's crazy. With solder paste, that is screen printed. With stainless steel meshes in a high-tech lab, the t-shirt is screen printed, right? The jumpers that we wear are screen printed. If you're in your car and you see like that walnut effect in the wood, that is a screen print onto plastic and then molded to look like wood.
No.
Who knew? Yeah, it's everywhere. Screen printing is everywhere and you have no idea. If you're in duty-free and you see one of those really awfully designed gin bottles, that's screen printed.
Oh.
Yeah, crazy, right?
And what's going on in this corner?
So this is a great moment actually, because R's a very, very experienced printer, and R is showing Lily and training. We're really keen on that here. Like, you will be, if someone comes to work here, they're just given so much information, so much help, because anyone can achieve anything. Like Lily, printed a lot of fabric, did a lot of textile printing. She knows what a day's work is. But the technical kind of looking with the loop, the fine adjustments of paper and how paper can stretch and pull, kind of like fabric actually, a very similar way, is something that they're going through right now. How to utilize this and how to really get something to fit really well. We obviously are very kind and want to build a support network, but at Make-Ready, it really needs to register. It really, really needs to.
Walk us through what just happened. So he sprayed it and he got the dust off. Now it's going into the...
That's right. So he's actually negatively charged the sheet, so it's ionized air. So the sheet will now repel dust for a brief moment while this process is happening. And then it's just printed. So it's printed for him. However, he has set every single parameter of that. This machine is just made to make an impression onto a substrate. So he's actually in control of everything that happens here. If he wants to adjust anything, he can do that.
And what's he looking for through the loops?
Now he's looking for registration.
What do you mean?
So he wants this impression to match the previous impression. That's what he's doing.
Okay.
And now he's talking to her about what might go wrong, like what you might look for. You might see a certain movement, but it's actually another type of movement. It's just passing on that experience. It's just picked it up and it goes onto the belt, and then it dries. It's cured UV. This ink will never dry until we dry it. So if you ever get, like my partner gets her nails done, really cool designs, and it's put under a UV lamp.
Oh yeah.
Same technology. UV technology.
Terrible for your nails.
Terrible for your nails, yeah. No, I wouldn't recommend putting your nails under this lamp.
No.
You would come out with a tan.
Do you use the same paper for every edition, or do you switch that up?
We switched that up. So for Grayson Perry, we actually had a paper made, a specific paper, which was a hybrid of two types of paper. And we had, funnily enough, with the mill, we stipulated that if we're going to make this paper and it goes in the catalogue, can we have MR in the name, which has now been immortalised. It's just great. So anyone who buys that will see that. But we often will use a similar paper because a lot of the press curves, a lot of the way that we work is set up. We can print on this paper and build our entire studio off printing on this Somerset tub size 100% cotton paper and mimic anything really. So yes, we do use different types of paper, but we built our business off this great paper that's made in England called Somerset.
I know. Thank you guys.
Thank you. Cheers. So, it isn't really chaos, like, even though like the creative process is, what he's doing as he sort of collapses, it's almost quantum, like he'll have lots of probabilities of colors, and as he realizes, okay, this is the color, he'll sort of collapse it into reality, and write it down and then go on to the next and the next layer. So when he comes
just to be really basic about this is like, right, he is mixing the color to get the color. This is not, this is like when I'm teaching the kids primary colors and what colors they make.
That's it, yeah. And you can get very clever about color. Some colors can be made in very different ways. You can get like a cerise and a green, and that can make you this kind of almost cherry-like. Cerise is like a very bluish red in a way. It's a really nice color, yeah. Something to be very colorful is quite hard to make. The more colors you put in, you must sacrifice saturation every time you mix colors together. Whereas in theatre and film, when you put all the colors together with light, they will make white. So this is reductive color mixing. So if you put all the colors in one pot, it makes black. So that's a bit of a challenge. And to be honest, at Make-Ready, we're quite keen on, like, the word match is sort of banned here. Like, we're making a print. We're not matching a red. We're making a print on paper. It looks different. It reflects the light different. And often we'll work with artists and say, dude, this looks amazing. Like, there's a condo with a yellow background that we made. That yellow, we spent ages trying to get it right. And I remember just coming in and saying, it's out of the tin. It's the bright yellow. And it just looked great, So sometimes, especially my style, I can be quite bullish with it. I just think it's just meant to look awesome.
Yeah.
And you can kind of get too deep into color theory sometimes, and you forget why you're making an original print. And often we'll do something and we'll mix a color and go, oh, that looks amazing. And we'll call the artist and say, I kind of like where this is going. They're like, yeah, I can't wait to see it. That's what we're about.
I love that notion that they are for their own.
They're their own thing.
They're their own thing.
Their own
right?
thing. Yeah.
Come on, show me some.
Cool. Let's have a look. Simply put, like when we make prints and make-ready, we're not talking about concepts and theory. Like, does it look? I always say to the team, we're asking a question about a color. I'm like, does it look good? Like, do you know what I mean? Does it look sick, basically? And if yes, normally like you go with your gut and that's it. And this one was quite tricky actually to make, but it's been really fun to work with this artist. And it's actually a simple digital print with a fluorescent silkscreen color printed into it. And this fluorescent silkscreen does this strange thing to your eyes. It makes it seem like there's kind of white bands where there's not, which actually means it's quite tricky to work with. This is one of the X's, so we would have, marked these. We've got little tickets in the pack.
Wait, what do you mean? X?
So just one that's misregistered or something, one of the working prints. We might take this up and cut it up and actually use it as a sample so we can, we can test against it.
And these little tabs, are you saying we got to pull that one out?
Possibly, yeah, or it might even be 10s or something like that. Or sometimes we'll write and go, okay, here are the good ones. And what you tend to do is you put the X's on top, then the maybes, and then the good one.
Okay, I have no idea if you want to answer this question, and you're very much allowed to say no.
Mm-hmm.
What's your kind of like fail rate?
It depends.
Really?
It honestly really depends. And it's actually something we think about quite a lot. We do love data, like we're always recording all the time and asking printmakers to think in that way, because it really does help you. But with this, it's a tricky one. Like, our success rate is probably like 75 to 80%.
Okay.
But, with something that's incredibly difficult, that has tons of layers and might have loads of revisions as well, that's something that we might bake in. So we might have a failure rate of like 30%, 40% sometimes, but that might have a lot of different driving factors in there. And then often what we'll do is at the end, we'll finish it, and we can even have a look at the finishing area and have a look at some of these prints. We'll go to the finishing area, we'll inspect every single one, and often the printmakers, they might have some question marks in their prints. And because they're so finicky, like 50% of them tend to go back into the edition. So we kind of train people to be very, very astute and really look out for mistakes. And then we'll have a bit of peace and quiet, and we'll go through them. So actually, here's some of the finished ones now that make the edition.
Properly
and Emma's actually trimming them. This is Emma on the guillotine. This is the unsung hero of the print studio. This machine, it's amazing. It's from like the 80s, and the screen on it is very Blade Runner. It's quite cool. But it still works. We have it serviced. I bought that for nothing.
It's literally from the 80s. I thought you were
literally from the 80s. Yeah. So there are more modern versions of these machines. Polar Moore is a really amazing supplier of them, and they still make them. And
how many pieces of paper did it just cut?
Probably cutting about 25 at a time. You could cut more. The thing is, if you make a mistake, do you know what I'm saying? Like, if you're, let's say we're selling Condo, and there's 25 prints in a pile, and how much the condos cost, and you accidentally cut it wrong, you need to be very, very delicate. Being delicate is such an important skill for anyone who works here, really. This is an indelibly made action, and it's the unsung hero of the print studio. This is great to see. Actually, Emma is just very, very, very careful, and we really trust her to use this machine. And it's cool. It's just a massive blade that smashes its way through.
Massive blade.
Yeah, there's lots of safety mechanisms. So you literally couldn't cut your hand off.
I don't believe you.
The only way to do it is if someone held you under it and you somehow rewired it. There are so many mechanisms to stop that happening. There's infrared beam. There's
very un-80s.
Very un-80s. Yeah. I think maybe just caught that when all the safety mechanisms came in. Yeah, maybe they destroyed all the other ones. Late 80s. So we've got, these are the prints that are going out, Judy Chicago, that's some proofs we've just finished. Derek Adams, what a guy, he's super cool. We just met him the other day, super rad guy. Weiwei, obviously the dragon there, we've got some additional prints that we're, once the edition's done, we'll keep aside to go through. This is cool actually, this is our donation of paper to my old university. So we often give paper to Cetros and Martins, Muzz there is a cool guy, and I screen printed there, right? That's where I made my bootleg Raise Against the Machine t-shirt, at CSF. So we often try and give stuff back to that community because paper's expensive, and art school's expensive. loads of great stuff for Ayaka Rikaku, Oscar, you know, great artists, Weiwei, Shabalala Self, Thomas Sanchez, Glenn Brown, Mickalene Thomas.
Just to be really boring. So the things come here, and then is there some place that someone's like packing?
Yeah, so our warehouse is in Amsterdam. So we pack them here, right? And then they go crated. So some of the crates you see up there, they get crated and then sent to Amsterdam. And that's where our team pack them, and they get those lovely Avant Arte boxes. So Make-Ready and Avant Arte, the finishing and warehouse teams are talking all the time, and our packing is something we are so meticulous about. Even when it goes from Make-Ready to the warehouse in Amsterdam, Avant Arte's warehouse, that is a work of art. Like, nothing is left to like, oh yeah, we just kind of tape it together. Like, actually something, when someone comes to work as a printer here, we put them on the finishing tables and we tell them how to make the box. And the box is made in the same way that it was made when I started the business. Because, you know, I used to work places and they kind of manhandle the prints a little bit, you know. And yeah, if you can do that right, you can start printing. It's like where you start is caring for the print. So yeah, finishing area, a bit quiet at the moment because we've sold a lot of prints. So they're all out of the studio. But it's a great example actually where the studio might look quiet, but we've obviously come over from quite a busy back of the room.
Yeah.
And if you could see, like if you had a camera up in the ceiling and you say you had a 3-month period as a time lapse, you'd see the team move around like this.
Yeah.
They'd move around because we'll do a ton of prints. They get finished, they get packed here. Then the team will proof again. Then they'll move. Do you see what I mean? So it's quite cool actually. There's a calmness to it. Digital printing isn't just Apple P. Like you have someone like Anastasia here, who's an absolute genius, who is just constantly innovating and thinking of ways to use these machines. You can make something very haptic and tactile that's appropriate for a certain artist. You know, we might not make a crazy color screen print for this guy. It might not sell. You know, and this is actually really appropriate for the market and his price point. And we can get stuff like this into collectors' hands. You know, and if he develops and we want to make silk screen print for him one day, so be it. But at least we can get producing work for him at this time and having collectors buy it at an affordable price.
How long does one of those take to print?
You'd have to ask Anastasia that, but a long time. No, they're more efficient when they're in the line. So because of the movement and print head just sort of conserving that momentum. But sometimes a print can take minutes. Sometimes it can take, with texture, it can take hours and hours. So you gang them all up together. So you print them in a row. So sometimes the print can take 2 hours.
I mean, you're starting to see it though.
Starting to see it, yeah. You are starting to see it, for sure. You can totally see the beginning of the texture.
I mean, ghost image, but it's there.
So that ink can be made up of, so it dumps the ink here, yeah. So this is real as well. This is real ink. You know, it's like screen printing. It's just printing in a different way and a more refined way.
So sorry, it's dropping off ink here?
When it cleans the print head, it will sit over there and it will basically have a little wee. That's like the only way to describe it. And that's the body basically. So
technical terms
here. When we get to digital, it gets very, very technical. That's pretty much our habit. Also as well, if you're printing one color too much, sometimes you get like a drip. So often what we'll do is we'll put like a band or bar at the end and it'll stop that from happening. Or you can tell it to like purge the printer heads. That's the more technical term actually, is purge the printer head, yeah. So this is, one of the screens. So that's your open mesh, right? This screen is 180 apertures per given centimeter, so it's very, very, very fine. In America, that would be like 450, 460 or something like that. And the image is exposed onto it and it creates this stencil basically. But the cool thing about the stencil is that, if you cut one out of paper and you had the letter A, the pawl in the middle of the A would fall away, right? So you'd have to make a bridge, and that's where you get that kind of that kind of stencil type. But with this, you don't. You can have things that float in the middle of artworks and different things. And this was the black layer, the final layer. We've got another layer here for him. This was the flames and the orange layer. And then you see they kind of connect and all go together. So this is your simplistic. This is your Patrick Colefield, Michael Craig Myers style like print, right? This is like big block color. Whereas this mesh and we use it and the same inks for the crazy, mimicked painting, super textural screen prints that we make. It's just a different distribution of dots. That's the real difference. This is the film of the thing we just saw earlier.
Oh no!
And then we expose that onto the mesh, and then that registers there. See?
Okay. But can you lift that up again?
Sure. Yeah.
Why is that the wrong color completely?
Because it needs to block light from it being exposed. You want to see where these screens are made? How we do it?
Maybe. Do we have time?
Sure, it's just over there. We won't do the whole process.
Yes, please.
I'll just explain it. Okay, this is quite cool actually. This is the mesh. This is it. We keep this here for this reason, to show people, you know. So this is by an artist, Jesse Mackinson. I love this
That really
artwork.
stressed me out.
Yeah, it's weird, isn't it? So
it's pulled so tight on that aluminum.
Oh, it's tight. It's 20 on the 180 meshes. It's 21 or 20 newtons. So it's relatively very tight for the size of the frames.
Not expect
It's cool, isn't it?
that.
So this is a 140 mesh. We've had this for a long time, and this is the image exposed onto it, right? And it's crazy. That is all it is. That's all it is.
I can't handle him
Mad,
doing
isn't
this.
it? But that's that. You know, that popped, right? Yeah. So when that popped, it's like, oh, heartbreak. And I said, well, let's cut it out. And so we never used that. We'd never use that again. The screen popped. So that's the real heartbreak of any screen printer. So if you came along and you were working for us, you just started, and you had this pair of scissors, and you were like, oh yeah, hey, boop, bang, like that. This screen would go pang, like that, and it would have a big mark in it. So what happened with that one is that it popped in the corner, and the tension went, so we couldn't use it. So what we did is I said, well, I get a knife and we cut it out and then we hung it up just to show people what the process is. It is literally, well, I mean, it's just mesh. It's this made in Switzerland, like incredible mesh, but it is effectively, you know, that's it. It's like, it's hair.
It's fabric.
It's the human, it's like the width, that's the width of human hair.
My gosh. It's so fine.
It's so fine. And there's the ones we use are finer than this. It's crazy, right? So to expose the screen, this might be a bit mind-boggling, but the screen comes in here, the positive film sits on here, so the screen and the positive film are on top of each other. The glass comes down, the vacuum comes on, the whole thing flips up, and then the light comes on and it's exposed. We've wired in this light integrator here so it captures the amount of light units, and then once it's done, it's a specific amount of light units because the bulb...
But it doesn't get affected by this light?
No, because we've measured this light with our spectrophotometer, so there's nothing below 420, 430 nanometers in this light here, because it's all LED, and there's UV filters on the windows, which comes on most glass actually any day this day and age. And the emulsion we use is what we describe as a wide latitude of exposure. So it's a dual cure emulsion. So you can expose it for a long time, and you can get different levels of exposure out of it. So when it's coated here and then comes out here for what is a very brief moment, the next room is red, and that has nothing below the second frequency of light that emulsion would expose with.
Right.
Then they could be stored in there. But when they come out here for just a moment, there's not much variable. Yeah, so we wouldn't want to turn this on. It wouldn't blind us, but it would just be very bright. But that's basically the way it works. This is where the screens are stored. It's kind of Twin Peaks. Here at David Lynch.
Very Dexter.
Very Dexter, yeah, exactly. So this is where the screens are stored. You'll notice it's very dry in here.
And warm.
Warm and dry. And this is where the screens come in. And if you have a screen in here, let's say it's a 180 mesh, this will dry in like 3 or 4 minutes. You know, just the whole room dries it. Cool air, dry airflow. Just, you know, dries the screens. It means we can, you know, just work in a very exacting way. We can make a screen for Leo fan now, and then we can make one for him in a year, and it'll be the same kind of quality, and we can build our prints off of that. These are ones that are coated, ready to go, ready to be exposed. So these will all have Lee's work on, which is pretty cool. You know, we will use this for Harlan Miller, we use this for George Condo, Mickalene Thomas, and then we'll strip and coat them again. And that's one of the ones that's been stripped. So you can see actually there's an old artwork here, just staining the mesh ever so slightly.
Yeah.
When that gets too bad, you know, obviously that can be a problem. But that's kind of, you see the history of the prints we make in the mesh, which is quite nice. It's probably quite valuable actually, if you had a Damien Hirst or something on there. And that's it, that's where we make the screens. It's a nice room because the lighting's so weird. There's also no color in there at all.
All right, I'm now gonna ask you to sit down.
Let's do it.
And we're gonna do a proper Who is Tom.
Great, yeah.